Imagine a world where night isn't just a time to switch off the lights and crash, but a full-blown adventure packed with mystery, rituals, and life. You go to bed, doze off for a couple of hours, then wake up in the dead of night to pray, chat with neighbors, mend tomorrow's fishing nets, or even make love before slipping back into sleep until dawn. Sounds crazy? But that's exactly how our ancestors slept for centuries. And to them, it was as normal as brushing your teeth. Today, we're obsessed with the idea of perfect sleep. 8 uninterrupted hours in a dark room, on a memory foam mattress with a high-tech pillow. But what if I told you this habit is a modern invention, and our ancestors lived by completely different rules? Basic sleep, where the night was split into 2 chunks with a break in between, was the norm for humanity for thousands of years. This isn't just a quirky fact. It's an epic saga of how humans survived, dreamed, created, and wrestled with nature in the rhythm of the night. Dive into this jaw-dropping story of sleep that'll make you see your bed in a whole new light and maybe even tempt you to try sleeping like an ancient human. Let's rewind hundreds of thousands of years to when humanity was just starting out. Caves, cold, darkness, no trace of alarm clocks, electricity, or cozy mattresses. Early humans, like Homo erectus, living about 1.5 million years ago, synced their lives with nature's rhythm. The sun rose, they woke up. The sun set, they slept. But sleep back then wasn't just crashing for the night. Archaeological finds in caves, like Sibudu in South Africa or Lascaux in France, show people slept on beds of grass mixed with aromatic plants, like lavender or eucalyptus, which repelled insects and maybe even helped them relax. Fire was their best friend. It warmed them, lit the darkness, and kept saber-toothed tigers and wolves at bay. They had to sleep lightly, often waking to toss logs on the fire or check for lurking predators. Scientists believe sleep might already have been biphasic back then. A short rest at dusk, then a wakeful period to guard the camp or socialize, followed by another sleep before dawn. Anthropologists studying modern tribes, like the Hadza in Tanzania or the San in Namibia, have noticed these people often sleep in bursts. They doze off after sunset, wake up a few hours later to eat, talk, or scout the area, then sleep again. For example, the Hadza might wake to plan tomorrow's hunt, while the San sing around the fire. This suggests biphasic sleep was natural for our ancestors. Without artificial light, their circadian rhythms, the body's internal clock, aligned with 12 to 14-hour nights. Sleeping straight through was not only boring, but dangerous. Staying awake allowed them to tend the fire, protect their families, or plan the next day. Sleep was flexible, just like life in the wild, and humans adapted to survive harsh conditions. But how did sleep change as humanity built civilizations? Let's jump to ancient Egypt, around 3000 BCE. Egyptians were erecting pyramids, worshiping gods, and crafting intricate rituals, with sleep playing a starring role. They believed dreams were messages from the gods or journeys of the soul to the afterlife. The god Shu, protector of air and sleep, was seen as the brother of the sun god Ra, guarding the night's peace. Egyptians slept on wooden or stone beds with headrests that seem uncomfortable to us, but were a status symbol back then. The wealthy draped themselves in linen sheets, while the poor slept on reed mats by the hearth. Papyrus texts, like the Book of the Dead, describe bedtime rituals, lighting incense, reciting spells, and placing amulets under pillows to ward off evil spirits that might haunt their dreams. Egyptians likely practiced biphasic sleep. Nights were long, and priestly records show people often woke for rituals. In temples like Karnak, priests rose in the middle of the night to track stars and perform ceremonies tied to celestial movements. Farmers might wake to check irrigation channels or livestock, while women prepared food for the next day. Even pharaohs, surrounded by luxury, could rise at night to discuss state affairs or receive oracles. Temples had special incubation rooms, where people slept to receive prophetic dreams. For instance, the sick visited the temple of Imhotep, hoping to learn how to heal through dreams. Sleep wasn't just rest. It was a thread woven into the spiritual and social fabric, connecting the human world to the divine. In Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, sleep was sacred too. The Sumerians and Babylonians, around 2000 BCE, created the world's first dream books, clay tablets interpreting dreams. A dream of flying promised success, falling meant trouble, and water signaled change. People slept in mud brick houses on mats or palm branch beds, often with the whole family in one room. Nights were split into two phases: a first sleep after sunset, a break for eating, praying, or talking, and a second sleep until dawn. Babylonian priests woke at night to observe stars and predict the future, while merchants discussed deals by the light of oil lamps. Archaeological finds, like tablets from Nippur, show dreams were so important they were recorded and analyzed in temples. Sleep was not just rest, but a way to connect with the divine. The ancient Greeks added a philosophical spin to sleep. They saw it as a gift from Hypnos, the god who lived in a cave surrounded by poppies, symbols of sleep and oblivion. His brother Thanatos, the god of death, hinted at the link between sleep and mortality. Homer's Iliad describes dreams as divine messages that could foretell fate. Greeks slept on wooden or bronze couches covered with wool or cloth. The wealthy adorned their beds with gold or ivory, while the poor made do with straw mattresses. Historical texts, like philosophers' diaries, mention late-night talks by the hearth, where people woke to discuss ideas or just sit in silence. For example, Plato's dialogues describe philosophers debating into the night before sleeping until morning. Biphasic sleep was normal, and no one found it odd. Doctors like Hippocrates advised patients to note their dreams, as they could signal illness. Dreams of fire might mean fever, while water could point to digestive issues. In ancient Rome, sleep became more structured. Romans slept on beds with wool, feather, or hay mattresses, and the rich even used primitive spring frames for extra comfort. The physician Galen, in the 2nd century, recommended sleeping in a cool room, avoiding heavy food before bed, and watching dreams for health clues. Romans woke at night too. Senators wrote letters, poets like Ovid penned verses, and lovers found time for intimacy. Soldiers on duty took night shifts, then slept in two phases to recover. Even in bathhouses, where Romans spent their evenings, discussions often stretched past midnight, interrupting the first sleep. Roman villas, like those in Pompeii, had bedrooms with mosaic floors and painted walls, but even there, nights were split into two sleep phases. The Middle Ages, with its dark centuries, made biphasic sleep universal. Historian Roger E. Kirsch, after studying hundreds of diaries, letters, and books, found that people divided the night into first sleep and second sleep. They doze off for 3-4 hours after sunset, wake for an hour or two, then sleep until dawn. This wakeful period, called night waking, was a time for all sorts of activities. Checked livestock, repaired tools, or prayed. City dwellers read by candlelight, wrote, or visited neighbors. In monasteries, monks rose for nighttime prayers, known as vigils, part of their spiritual discipline. For example, Benedictine monks woke at midnight for services before returning to bed until morning. Why was biphasic sleep so common? Winter nights lasted up to 14 hours, and sleeping straight through was uncomfortable and unnatural. Without electricity, night was a time of quiet and reflection. People used this break for connection. Husbands and wives discussed plans, neighbors swapped gossip, and lovers stole moments together. Literature, from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales to monastic chronicles, is full of references to nighttime chats, or even crimes committed during this dead hour. In 14th century England, court records mention thefts and murders that happened during night waking when people were active. For instance, London chronicles describe a thief sneaking into a home during this break, while the owners talked by the fire. Medieval beds reflected the lifestyle. Commoners slept on straw mattresses or sacks of hay, often with the whole family in one room. The wealthy had canopied beds to shield from drafts and insects like fleas or bed bugs, which were a real plague. Even in castles, sleep was biphasic. Nobles woke to play chess, listen to minstrels, or discuss politics. In villages, the night waking was a time for storytelling. Elders shared legends, and children listened to tales by the hearth. In 13th century Ireland, bards recited sagas of heroes like Xu Chulin during nighttime gatherings, as embers glowed in the fire. Sleep had its own flavor in other cultures too. In China, where Taoism and Buddhism valued harmony with nature, people slept on bamboo mats or wooden beds with thin mattresses. Texts like the Zhuangzi mention nighttime meditations, where monks woke to contemplate the stars or practice breathing exercises for enlightenment. In India, the Vedas described sleep as a time when the soul traveled to other realms. People slept on cloths or mats, often waking for rituals like worshipping gods by lamplight. For example, in Vishnu temples, priests rose at night to light lamps and sing hymns. In pre-Columbian America, the Maya and Aztecs tied sleep to astrology. Priests woke to observe stars and predict the future. The Aztecs believed dreams could foretell victory in war or a good harvest, even offering sacrifices to ensure favorable visions. In Africa, among the Bantu tribes of East Africa, sleep was part of communal life. People slept in huts, often with the whole family, and woke at night to sing, dance, or tell stories by the fire. The Zulu, for instance, used nighttime for rituals honoring ancestors, with elders sharing wisdom. In Polynesia, on Pacific Islands, sleep followed natural. People slept under open skies on palm leaf mats, waking to check fishing nets or boats for the morning catch. In Australia, Aboriginal peoples like the Arrernte slept by fires and believed dreams connected them to the dream time, a mythical past where the world was created. These traditions show that biphasic sleep wasn't just a European thing. It was part of life in many cultures, where night was a time of activity, not total silence. Everything changed with artificial light. In the 16th and 17th centuries, candles and oil lamps began to shift the rhythm of life. The wealthy in Europe could read, write, or host parties after sunset, and cities like Paris, Venice, and London came alive at night. In Paris, under Louis XIV, the court at Versailles glittered with candlelight, with balls lasting until dawn. But the real game-changer came in the 18th and 19th centuries, with gas lighting and electricity. Streets glowed with lanterns, and factories ran around the clock. The Industrial Revolution demanded peak productivity. Workers toiled 12-14 hours a day, and night waking became a nuisance. Factory owners in England, like those running textile mills in Manchester, pushed strict schedules, and the idea of 8 hours of sleep emerged as the ideal for efficient work. Gas lamps, then electric bulbs, made night accessible for work and play. 19th century etiquette books, like those by William Bonting, urged sleeping in one block to be ready for the workday. Biphasic sleep came to be seen as a relic of the past, and insomnia emerged as a new disease. Doctors like German physiologist Karl von Wehrort studied circadian rhythms and found that artificial light disrupted melatonin, the sleep hormone. In cities where lights burned all night, people slept worse than in villages. In 1850s London, residents complained about noise and light from gas lamps keeping them awake. By the early 20th century, biphasic sleep had nearly vanished in Europe and America, though it lingered in rural areas like the Alps, Pyrenees, or Siberia until the 1920s. But this shift came at a cost: insomnia, barely known before the 18th century, became an epidemic. In England, doctors noted a rise in nervous disorders tied to sleep loss. In the U.S., where industrial cities like New York and Chicago never slept, people turned to opium and laudanum to fall asleep. Meanwhile, in the Ottoman Empire, coffee houses opened late into the night, cut into sleep time. People drank coffee to stay awake, sleeping less. In 18th century Istanbul, coffee houses were hubs of nightlife, where poets, merchants, and even revolutionaries debated until dawn. In Japan, where people traditionally slept on futons, Western lifestyles began to replace nighttime rituals like tea ceremonies or meditations with continuous sleep. The science of sleep took shape in the 19th century. Karl von Weierort was among the first to study circadian rhythms, showing how light affects the body. By the early 20th century, scientists like Nathaniel Kleitman, the father of sleep research, recorded brain waves of sleeping people, discovering the phases of rapid eye movement, REM, and non-REM sleep. In 1953, Kleitman and his student Eugene Oserinsky found that during REM sleep, people dream, and the brain is highly active. This flipped the script on sleep. It wasn't just shutting off the brain, but a complex process vital for memory, learning, and health. Research showed that sleep deprivation could have dire consequences. In the 1960s, an experiment with American teen Randy Gardner, who stayed awake for 11 days, revealed that lack of sleep caused hallucinations, depression, and loss of coordination. In the 1980s, studies linked chronic sleep loss to heart disease, diabetes, and weakened immunity. A 2005 study in the journal Sleep found that people sleeping less than 6 hours a night had a 50% higher risk of heart attack. Sleep wasn't a luxury, it was a necessity for survival. Modern life has made sleep even trickier. Smartphones, TVs, and the internet keep us bathed in light. Blue light from screens suppresses melatonin, leaving us tossing and turning. According to the World Health Organization, about 30% of people worldwide suffer from insomnia. And in the U.S., 70 million have chronic sleep issues. In Japan, where workdays can stretch 12-14 hours, insomnia is a national problem, with companies even setting up sleep rooms for employees. In China, with its culture of overwork, people average 6.5 hours of sleep, below the recommended 7-9 hours. But biphasic sleep hasn't vanished entirely. In the 1990s, psychiatrist Thomas Ware ran an experiment, placing people in conditions without artificial light, living by candlelight for 14 hours a day. Participants quickly reverted to biphasic sleep, 3 to 4 hours of sleep, a 1 to 2 hour wakeful period, then sleep until morning. They described the night waking as a time of calm, where they reflected, dreamed, or solved problems. One participant said the nighttime hours helped her make a major life decision. This experiment showed that biphasic sleep might be natural for humans without light and stress. Today, scientists say the continuous sleep we're forced into may be harmful. A 2015 study in sleep suggests that interrupted sleep isn't always insomnia. It might be our bodies trying to revert to an ancient rhythm. In cultures like Spain, Mexico, or Italy, daytime siestas remain popular, echoing the flexibility of our ancestors' sleep. In Spain, shops close for 2 to 3 hours midday, so people can nap. In Japan, inamuri, brief naps at work or on public transport, is normal, letting people recharge without rigid 8-hour blocks. Even in the U.S., companies like Google install sleep pods for employees, recognizing the value of short rests. How can we reclaim this rhythm? Scientists suggest dimming lights at night, avoiding screens before bed, and even experimenting with nighttime wakefulness. Some people, inspired by history, try biphasic sleep and find it soothing. For example, writers like Charles Dickens used nighttime hours for creativity, wandering London streets to plot stories. Artists like Vincent van Gogh drew inspiration from the quiet of night, painting masterpieces like Starry Night, where the sky feels alive. Modern creators, like author J.K. Rowling, have said nighttime hours sparked their ideas. Maybe the night waking isn't a hindrance, but a chance for creativity and reflection. Sleep has inspired not just individuals, but entire cultures. In the Middle Ages, dreams fueled poetry. Dante's Divine Comedy portrayed dreams as gateways to other worlds, and William Langland's Piers Plowman used dreams as allegories for social issues. In the Renaissance, dreams became art. Caravaggio painted sleeping gods, while Bosch filled his canvases with nightmarish visions. In the 20th century, Sigmund Freud's interpretation of dreams argued that dreams reveal hidden desires, and Carl Jung saw them as links to the collective unconscious. Dreams have shaped art, literature, and philosophy, from ancient myths to modern films like Christopher Nolan's Inception, where sleep becomes a whole universe. Sleep has also shaped history. Picture Napoleon, who reportedly slept just 4 hours a night, but still woke at night to plan battles like Austerlitz. Or Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb but napped in short bursts, calling it power sleep. Lack of sleep could lead to disasters. The 1986 Chernobyl nuclear accident happened at night, when exhausted operators, sleep-deprived, made fatal mistakes. The 1989 Exxon Valdez oil spill, causing an environmental catastrophe, was also linked to the crew's fatigue from overwork. Sleep isn't just rest. It's a force that drives history, and its absence can change the world's fate. But sleep is also social. In the Middle Ages, night waking strengthened bonds. Families gathered by the hearth, friends swapped stories, and communities held nighttime rituals. In Africa, tribes like the Maasai used nighttime for dances and songs that united people. In Polynesia, fishers shared tales of the sea during night waking, passing knowledge to the young. Even today, in cultures like India, nighttime festivals like Diwali bring people together, echoing ancient traditions of nocturnal activity. Today, we live in a world where sleep is a luxury. We spend billions on mattresses, sleeping pills, sleep tracking apps, and even smart beds. Yet, wake up exhausted. The National Sleep Foundation says the average American gets 6.8 hours of sleep, below the recommended 7 to 9 hours. In Russia, 20 surveys show 40% of people struggle with sleep issues. Insomnia is an epidemic, and stress, caffeine, and tech only make it worse. We chug energy drinks to stay awake by day and pop melatonin to sleep at night, but still feel drained. The story of sleep is a tale of how humanity survived in a world without light, crafted rituals around the night, and fought nature for progress. From cave dwellers sleeping by fires to medieval monks praying in silence, from philosophers scribbling by candlelight to us tossing under smartphone glow, sleep has shaped our lives, culture, and health. But the fight for good sleep isn't over. Millions suffer from insomnia, and tech and 24/7 culture make nights ever shorter. Maybe it's time to look back at our ancestors, who slept twice a night and saw it not as a problem, but as part of life. Try going to bed earlier, waking in the dead of night to gaze at the stars or just dream, then slipping back to sleep. Or at least turn off your phone before bed. Next time you're lying in bed, ask yourself, what if we've been sleeping wrong our whole lives? Maybe it's time to reclaim the night and sleep for ourselves.